Yeah.
About dealing with uncertainty. So this is a very common theme. I'm witnessing and experiencing people wanting to know what to do with the uncertainty in their own lives, but also a lot of coaches who are going, wow, there's a lot of uncertainty in my clients' lives, and I want to know how to help them as well. So these are the two big topics that we're going to be covering today. But before we go any further, quick introduction of Chris. And Chris and I met 2 years ago. It's 2 years ago this month, in fact. Yeah. And we were waiting in line to go pee at an event in Austin, Texas. We were at the Paleo Effects with that healthpreneur.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a mastermind event. And we were waiting in line to pee, and that's where we met. And
in the bathroom.
And then we got to chatting. Actually, it was your ex-wife that I think initiated the conversation.
I was just too triggered by you to engage.
Yeah, so it was I can trigger some people.
No. Yeah, so she was the one who engaged.
Yeah.
And she asked 2 questions, 1 question.
By the way, this story, just so everyone knows, this story is going to lead to something I found out about 6 months ago. That Chris fucking hated me. Chris hated me at one point. And I didn't know this until we had gotten to be friends and we were hanging out. And
like a few months ago, you found this out.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part. I like you so much now that I forgot that I once hated you. That was old identity.
So here's the thing is I have no idea why he hated me. I have my suspicions, but I am curious about if you hated me before we met, and then if it was something specifically that caused you to hate me, and then just the whole thing. But I imagine it's tied into this story, and this is me putting the hook out there, so people are like, oh fuck, I want to find out why Chris hated Mike. Because I'm about to find out right with you. Because I have no idea.
Live.
Yeah, you might see me get triggered.
So I for those of you that don't know, I was in the gym space. I owned a CrossFit affiliate. I just sold it for 10 years, and so Mike had a presence in this space as well, running the Shrugged podcast, and I used to be so triggered by Mike Bledsoe on the Shrugged podcast. And it was this, what felt like arrogance and this self-involved aura that Mike Bledsoe put off. And I was so triggered by it because I was at a point to where like I realized after the fact that I wanted to be more confident. I wanted to be more easygoing about business. As I was taking things so fucking serious. Can I say fucking? Are we good?
Yeah,
there?
You can say whatever you want.
Cool. So I was.
That's right. Have random people walk through the background.
That's right. And so like I was like taking things so serious and like shit wasn't going well. And when I met you, you were shirt off, smoking a hand-rolled tobacco cigarette and at this business conference. And like we were talking like strategy and like all these like business tactics and tools. And you're just literally shirt off, just sunning yourself. And I'm like, who the fuck does this guy think he is? So triggered. And so if Bryn had not engaged you, we probably would have never met, because I was like, fuck this guy. I was like, seriously, fuck this guy. And I did, however, we sat at the table, I think, after.
Well, you ended up taking your shirt off too.
I did.
Yeah.
I took my shirt off. That's when I started to warm up to you a little bit that day. And then we sat together at the breakout table, And, it was funny because we were standing around the house that we lived together in Imperial Beach, and I opened my journal to that page of the advice that you gave me. And it was ironic because I didn't want to take that advice. And then a year and a half later, I realized that I took all of the advice and didn't even know it. And that was because I went and so backtracking, the one question that Bryn asked was, what work have you done? Because of the aura, and then just the easygoingness and the self-assuredness, and she asked, was like, I want some of that. Like, what have you done?
Yeah, it was obvious to her. There's like
It was
something,
obvious.
I had done something. I wasn't
Yeah.
born like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was just a different energy than everyone was putting off at this conference. And I think you had just, I don't know when you did. This was in April of 18, and
Yeah.
so I don't know when you did Training Camp for the Soul, but I think it was a few
I'd done it
months
about
prior.
6 months before
6
that. I
months
did it in
prior. Okay.
November of 2017.
Okay.
Is when I worked with a knot. Yeah.
And
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so I worked with a knot, and then we changed. She was doing a program called Journey to Love. I said, that's not going to work, and this is more than that. And so we changed it to Training Camp, started working with her, started Training Camp for the Soul. And that's what I told Bren and Chris. I said, Training Camp for the Soul is what I did. Fast forward to today, Chris is now the CEO of Training Camp for the Soul.
Funny how that works.
Yeah, funny how that works. He went from being triggered and hating me to running the company that caused my transformation.
Yeah. And mine too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So what I want to know is before we get because here's the deal is we're going to be talking about uncertainty. And I know that people learn the best through story. And so can you describe to us where you were at before Training Camp for the Soul? Like, describe to me what business was like, and then what type of uncertainty you were facing then. And because uncertainty is nothing new.
Yeah.
People's perception of uncertainty has definitely shifted in the last month. And that's why we're talking about this right now. Yeah. And you took in the last year, I've witnessed you take so many, what other people would consider to be risks. And you did things that other people would consider to be crazy for the purpose of stepping in and following your heart and trusting that the universe and that things were going to work out in the best possible situation. And would you say that your life has been, because of all these things you did that were fucking scary, that were uncertain, that you're living a much better life now, something that's more fulfilling?
Exponentially more fulfilling, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, tell us where you were at. Let's rewind a year and a half ago. So after we met, and then where was your business and where was your mind?
Yeah, I'll rewind a little bit previous to that because it's part of the story. I had been in business for about 10 years as an entrepreneur. I'd built a gym and built it to run without me completely, which is a dream.
Got a CrossFit gym.
Yep.
Yep.
And then I had also started a meal delivery company, April 14. And I also sold that one too. But at that time when I met you, I had grown it to be very profitable. It was successful on a local and a regional scale. And in 2017, I made a massively ego-based decision to scale it nationwide at the end of 17. And when I met you in April of 18, it was going the worst I imagined it could go. We were doing a lot of revenue. We're doing about 7 figures in revenue, or almost, but we were not making money on every package that we shipped out. We were actually losing money because of marketing costs and packaging costs. And so at one point, I think around that point, like I was personally, because I actually self-funded it all. I didn't take on investors, and I was personally losing about $2,000 a day. It was like the most stressful time in my life. Yeah.
Sounds terrible.
Like every time, like I would go to bed, I'd be like, oh yeah, it's another $2,000.
On.
Yeah. And so it was incredibly stressful. And so there was so much uncertainty in my life because I had basically poured all of what I had built in 10 years into this, and it wasn't going well. I trusted a lot of people in the process that just didn't come through. And so I was really at what I would call rock bottom, emotionally and mentally. And fast forward, I meet you at this conference, and then end up having a call with a knot discovery call. And I was so resistant at that point because I didn't see that the common denominator to all these decisions and everything that was happening was me. Because I wasn't fulfilled in my relationship. I wasn't fulfilled in my business. I wasn't fulfilled in my life, mostly because I was working 80, 100 hours a week, and like my business was my life, and I wasn't fulfilled there. I had no social life outside of that. My health was deteriorating. Like I'm here owning a gym and a healthy meal delivery company, and I'm stressed out. I'm not sleeping. I'm putting on weight. I'm not even working out anymore, and all my energy is going to this, and I'm just miserable. And so I have the discovery call, and I can't see the connection that like the common denominator in all of this is me. And so I resistance. Finally, I have what I call the turning point. I have a breakdown. I'm driving back from Thanksgiving with family, and I'm driving home, and I just have this emotional breakdown. And my then partner was in the car, and she was going through the beta version of Training Camp for the Soul's virtual program, and she's like, "I see everything." she had just finished it, actually. She's like, "I see what's happening here," but just like all of us, we can't be told what we need. We have to figure it out on our own. So me finally breaking down with all the uncertainty of life, uncertainty of my finances, uncertainty of my relationships. And I finally break down. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. So I started the virtual program of Training Camp for the Soul, January of 2018. And
2019.
2019?
2018.
2019.
2019.
Wow, that's it.
So fast.
A year ago.
So fast. By the way, folks, if you're like, man, that guy's moving fast. Chris's most common question to me is, how can I go faster? Oh, my other favorite question, my favorite question from you at all time was, what is the thing that, how did you word it? What's the one thing that you don't think I'm ready to hear, or something like that? I'm like, well, that's dumb.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, what's the one thing I'm not ready for, but you want to tell me right now? You're not ready. Yep.
That's the worst question ever.
I know.
But Chris does move fast. That's what I'm pointing out. Is Chris moves fast.
Well, what I'm learning, and the speed of implementation keeps getting faster, because what I'm learning is the more and more I get into alignment, the easier things go. And so when decisions come up, it's starting to get so obvious of what's in alignment and what's not. So like, I just immediately start taking the action that's in alignment with my heart, and it always works out better than I can imagine. And so the trust builds every time I make a decision that feels right or feels in alignment. It always works out better. And so it gets easier and easier to do that. And that doesn't mean that the decisions are easy. Like, for people that don't know my story, I've now gotten out of both of those businesses, sold both of those businesses. I sold my house and everything in it. I moved across the country from Florida to California. I basically quit the jobs that I had before I had another job, which is now as CEO and facilitator and training camp for the soul. I didn't have that when I just made all these decisions. I didn't have a place to live when I moved across the country. My wife and I ended up separating and eventually now divorcing. And so like all of these are not easy decisions by any means, but they were all exactly what my heart told me I should be doing. So massive uncertainty in all of those.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation that I'm having with people, is that, like you started the call with, uncertainty is not new. We just haven't seen it all at the same time. But how often do we have layoffs in companies? We have relationships ending. We have loved ones passing away. We have car accidents, like whatever it is, like life is always happening to us. Now it's just happening to all of us at the same time in a common theme.
Well, what's also happening is people are, it is happening all at the same time, but people who would normally promise us certainty, employers, politicians, world leaders, CEOs, are all saying, I don't know. Or they're saying one thing and the next day saying another.
Yeah.
And so this happens a lot with politics, and you can tell how much people really place the certainty of their life on politicians by how worked up they get over what's going on in politics in the first place. And what's happening right now is the people who are leading the country are going, it's like, yeah, well, maybe this will happen, or maybe that'll happen. And well, these numbers seem scary. We're tracking all these numbers that like we weren't tracking before, but we were tracking car accidents like that, and people were actually freaked out. I mean, there's a lot of uncertainty exists constantly. It's just that people are being more, the leaders who normally create the certainty for us are now not able to continue to do that.
We were seeking a lot of structure from outside in. Like we're seeking structure from all these other things that have been built around our life and around ourselves. And a lot of those things are breaking down. And we're realizing that like real structure, real certainty comes from inside out.
Yeah.
And we can create it that way. But most people's lives it was frail. It was based on things that were like created for them. And now people are having those things shattered. And
if you're finding it outside of yourself, that means that someone else can take it away.
Exactly.
If you have it from inside of yourself, nobody can take that. It's like a lot of times people talk about freedom this and freedom that. I'm like, how about we work on the internal freedom? Because it doesn't matter what happens out there. Like I have my own personal freedom. And for someone who doesn't know what that, if they think I sound like I'm crazy, you just haven't had the experience yet. You don't. Chris 2 years ago would have looked at me and like I was crazy.
I thought you were crazy.
Yeah, myself 10 years ago would have slapped me in the face and said, "What a crazy old guy." But these structures we're talking about, I'm having to, or not having to. I am. I get to create all these new structures inside this new lifestyle that was gifted to us, and it's been a really fun project. Now, one of the things you talked about alignment previously. So the majority of structures in our life, especially the structures that are we inherit. So like we can think about, if people go, I want to bring this down to a more practical conversation, because people go, what the fuck are they talking about structure? So like a structure that most Americans go through is around 5 or 6 years old. They start going to school. And they know that their day starts at 7, 8, 9 a.m. And then it goes until 3 or 4 p.m. And then they get off of school, they get off of work. And so there is the entire all of our society is in this rhythm.
Mhm.
So everyone's getting up, everyone's doing about the same thing, that we have the weekends off,
Yep.
do all this stuff. So like there's this rhythm that we, and this structure that we inherit,
Mhm.
and most people never question. And so when you get a structure that's always been there and it gets yanked out from underneath you, that can be very destabilizing.
Mhm.
Well, a lot of people before this situation, myself, Chris, anyone in the Strong Coach, like all the Strong Coach staff, Training Camp for the Soul staff, anyone who's been
Mhm.
through Training Camp for the Soul, we have all gone through the process of saying, all right, I'm going to take all the structure that I inherited, and I'm going to wipe it away. I'm going to find my internal alignment and then create structure based off of my new alignment. And so I get to build a whole new life based on what it is I truly desired, what I, not what I inherited, but what I can create from nothing. And so, and what my soul wants to create. So for you, what is that process of, because a lot of times, like if we just create a structure, then it's still not going to be the one, it's still not going to be fulfilling. It's not going to be satisfying. We have to go back to the alignment conversation, find
Mhm.
alignment, and then create new structure from alignment. What does that process look like? What is alignment and how do you find it?
Yeah. So alignment is the thoughts, the words, the actions, the emotions, all being in the same direction. So if you're the type of person that says, I want to be healthy, but you're sleeping 4 hours a night and you're drinking 8 cups of coffee and you're e- eating crap, like that's not in alignment. And so for for the way that we teach, it actually comes from inside. We call it your heart first, and then it goes out from there. That controls your thoughts and then your words you speak from that. So uh, it starts with first learning how to listen to what you really want in the first place, like who you really are. And that is difficult for many people because oftentimes there's layers on top of it that is what we've been told we should be, or we should say, or we should be doing. And so like our process is stripping away a lot of that programming, or at least making us aware of it. Like this is something that you believe only because mom or dad believed it, or only because that was something you learned in school or in church or religion. And so when you become aware to all of these things, I got to I started choosing the ones that I really liked. I was like, oh, I love that this is a characteristics I inherited. And then there was another thing that was like, oh, this belief, I can see where this is showing up, and it's making like every relationship shitty. Or it's making me. In my case, one of my stories was that life had to be hard and suffering to be successful. And when I was able to identify that and pull out really where that came from, mostly from my dad and my dad's side of the family. And I was able to replace it with life can be easy. It can flow with ease and grace. And I started to reaffirm that, and I started to find evidence in my life where really it could be easy. Um, that became my new operating script. And yeah, I started checking in more. We use this term checking in, and really all that is taking a pause, taking a breath, sometimes going to the journal. I journal all the time now throughout the day, and really just writing out like what's actually going on in that head of mine. And what I realized through going through this process was there's a few voices in there, and they all have really distinct ways of speaking. And I started to learn to listen to them all, and then really make the decision from my heart and what I really wanted. I was like, oh, great. Like this programming's still there. Okay. That wants me to do this. And like this voice over here, um, thinks that that's a terrible idea, and there's a lot of fear. I'm like, okay, great, okay, and then what does the heart want? And so we have ways of we have an exercise we call the dinner table. It's a way of journaling out and listening to all those voices, um, and really identifying them, and then deciding which one you actually want to listen to. And the truth is, for me, I was listening to my ego like most of the time, my ego and my inner critic. And
Can you give us an example of what the ego sounds like?
yeah, I mean, the ego is, and I think about all my business decisions were based on more money. It was based on bigger. It was based on status. It was based on what other people think. So, um, yeah, it was. It was. All my friends are growing bigger businesses. I got to grow a bigger business.
Yeah.
Yeah, is yeah, and I realized that that started early on for me, when it was the people that were in my family, my extended family, the ones that were like talked about at the family gatherings, were the ones that were making the most money.
Right.
Like we're at Christmas with 75 people of all the extended family, and like all the stories were about like Uncle Joe that was doing this, and he was just making a ton of money. And I was like, oh, like that's what I should be doing. And
Yeah.
so,
So
yeah,
impressive.
so impressive.
Everyone loves Uncle Joe.
Yeah. um, so yeah, and what's the concept that is underlying all of this is all these voices, all of this programming it's not who we are. It's not our identity. Like that's not me. That's just what I've learned and what I've been doing. But just because I learned it, like I can also unlearn it and relearn something new. And that's exactly what I did. And what we do at Training Camp for the Soul is we teach people how to unlearn the things that they don't like and relearn something else that serves them. And
Yeah.
now's the time.
Unlearning parts of your identity and then relearning. That's some deep shit, man. That's a thing that like most people,
Yeah.
I get in conversations a lot. And one of the things that I love meditating on is what is actually, what can I unlearn and learn new? And the thing is I've gotten to the conclusion that I can learn and unlearn anything. Nothing is set. Nothing is set. But here's the thing is my mind is limited on what that means.
Yep.
I can say that verbally.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I've been meditating on this, unlearning and relearning anything for years, I keep on finding new layers of it. I go, oh shit, I can unlearn that.
That too?
That too. Oh my gosh. Like things that are super deep cultural learnings, things that everybody agrees on. And then you see where it comes from and where that started culturally. And you go, holy shit, that is just, that's not really like that's reality because everyone is agreeing on it. But if I disagree with it, I don't stop being here.
Yeah.
So it's, and then not only that, if I try on believing something differently, what's my life look like? Oh, it got, I actually like it better like this. And then, so then you may end up being considered a crazy person to some, for the vast majority when you go through this practice. But when you get to that point, you don't give a fuck.
Right.
Yeah. You're like people think you're crazy. It's like, yeah, okay. If me being crazy means I can travel the world at will, I make enough money, I'm surrounded by people I love and they love me, deep connection I didn't even know was possible. Like, when I work, it's the most fulfilling thing. Like I'm in one spot right now. I'm used to just bouncing all over the place. And at first I go, my lifestyle is changing. how am I was curious. I'm like, how am I going to respond to this? I haven't been told to stop and stay in one place
Yeah.
and years. I mean, maybe my whole life, I would say, since the military was the last time I was told I had to do anything. And I'm going, well, how am I going to respond? I don't know. And it's like, it's the best time ever.
Awesome.
I'm like in a house with my ex-wife and one of my buddies, Ben, and we're just working and doing breath work and working out and seeing sights. And yeah, man, it just ends up being awesome.
Yeah.
And I would not have been able to have that experience before. I would have, years ago, in this situation, I would have been bored. I would have been scared. I would have been stressed. I would have been watching lots of Netflix. Yeah. I would not have been getting good sleep. I would have been having to smoke lots of weed just to fucking pass out.
Yeah.
What would Chris 2 years ago would have done in this situation?
I'd be freaking out, and I would just be like working more. I would think that I would probably be sleeping 3 to 4 hours a night and just be like working more, like banging on a computer, just trying to figure it out up here. Like, it's got to be there. Like I got to just do more. And all the while just been in fear, like fear and anxiety of like what's going to happen. Like my life's going to end. Yeah, that's the repeating story. Like it's all going. Yeah,
it's going to come crumbling down.
Crumbling.
Like, well, what happens if it crumbles down?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
Yeah. Turns out it can be awesome.
Yeah, I think you're in the same camp as like impending destruction is on the horizon. You're like, fuck yeah. Like,
fuck yeah.
Everyone else is like, what are you celebrating?
Yeah.
Can't you see? Can't you see? It's like, yeah, like last time I experienced destruction, it was pretty fucking cool.
It was fucking great. And now it's just giving to me another level. Like if it was this great with what I chose to do, like this is going to be amazing.
Yeah. And going through these processes are emotionally demanding. And it's the unlearning is a destructive process, right? And so when we talk about destruction, we can be talking about unlearning. It can feel destructive. For me, when I think about the definition of learning equals behavior change. And unlearning would be undoing a behavior. So if you truly unlearn something, the result of that is your behaviors changed. And if your behavior changes, your environment changes, your relationships change. Everything changes the moment that you stop behaving a certain way or start behaving a new way. And so what that means is things that were happening will stop happening. And for a lot of people who are used to you behaving a certain way, they're going to see that as a destructive process.
Yeah.
There's also certain things that just go away that were part of the way life was, and you don't know what it's going to be replaced with. And it takes a lot of trust to know that it's going to be replaced with something.
Yeah.
And if you're living in alignment, it's going to be replaced with something that's in alignment. And it's easy to intellectualize that. But the emotional experience of going through that unlearning there's a lot of, for me, it's a lot of grieving.
A lot of grieving.
And then there's a moment of anger at myself for having believed that in the first place. And then there's forgiveness. And then there's maybe more grieving. And then there's laughter and, orgasm. And it's like, oh. And then it's like, I never have to deal with that again.
Yeah.
I never have to do that again. And I never have to do the thing that I thought was exactly how the world was and how I was. But now I see that it's none of that. It's fun.
Yep. Yeah. and everyone wants to, like, I've had this conversation 100 times, maybe with friends and people that knew me before and have seen this massive shift. And the question is always, okay, so how do I get that without giving up like
Right.
how do I keep this and then also get what you're talking about, what you have and what I've witnessed with you? I'm like, well, that's that's the process. Like you have to clear the things that are in the way of you having what you desire.
Yeah. People
It's
want
not just
transformation,
layering
but
on top. Yeah.
yeah, people want transformation, but they don't want. Well, here's the thing: it's inherent. Like, it's very common in our culture to want to add more. The
Yeah.
solution is more.
It's more. Yeah.
Yeah, I want what you have, but I want to keep what I have. It's like,
Yeah.
no. It's not a more conversation. It's a
No, it's actually a
less
less
conversation. Yeah.
hmm A lot of the things that we have been piling in are the things that are the problem. Like it's not that you have everything inside to have exactly what you want, but there's just like there's things in your way.
Yeah.
And so we don't really add anything in our process that's not already there. Like we're not feeding people stuff. They come up with it once they have space. Once they've cleared it away, they're like, "Oh, that's possible and I already have all that. Like that's already in me." Like,
Yeah.
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 hmm
Well, I think that the world is going through that. So, one of the really cool things I love about studying human development is
hmm
it directly translates to cultural development.
hmm
And so, one of the things that we do and is we study predictable stages of development in human beings. So we can predictably uh, we can predict accurately if this is where you're at in your state of mind right now. We can go, well, we know the next step for you. And that may sound crazy, but looking back, it's really easy to see. So we can look at, like, there's predictable stages of human beings. There's like babies when they're born, they only care about themselves. They're gonna be focused on them. There's no difference between them and their mother and this and that. And then at some point, we know that they're gonna realize that, well, it's them plus their parents, and then they're gonna realize it's them plus the family. Then it's them plus whatever. And so their awareness keeps expanding, and that's one type of development that we can predict, is there's an expansion of awareness. And consideration. Most people stall out at a pretty early age, for a lot of things. But that's what we're here for. But the same thing, we can look at culture and go, it is actually the same types of behavior that's happening culturally as it is for humans. And we know that these stages of development are marked by what we were calling destruction or unlearning. And so what we're witnessing in the world right now is an unlearning process. It seems destructive. And it's hard when you're inside of the destructive process. Things are shut down. People are dying. There's a lot of fear during the destructive process, because what we fear is what we don't understand. And you can't understand what you've never experienced. And so we've never experienced this. So the entire culture is experiencing fear right now. And we're inside this destructive process. And so for guys like Chris and me, who have been through countless encounters with destruction for the purpose of doing something better on the other side, it's obvious. It's like, yeah. And there's a level of comfort that we get to enjoy because we've had this experience of, we call unlearning, destruction, death, ego death. There's all these things that are commonly referred to as individuals that are being experienced on a collective level right now. So for all of us as individuals, it can be scary. And I've experienced moments of fear in this. And then I go, oh yeah, this is just like my own transformation. The world is going through a transformation. Cool. Now it's a celebration.
Right.
That makes it easy to work.
It does. Yeah. Yeah, it does. And it's not, and you can celebrate while still not knowing what it's going to be. And that's one of the practices that I took on when I was I was in the middle of a lot of the destruction, and I didn't know what it was going to look like. And what I started doing was I started saying thank you for the destruction, because I know there's going to be a gift. And the sooner I started saying thank you, the sooner the gift would show up, because I was looking for it, as opposed to, it's all like, if you think it's always going to be destruction, you're going to continue to see destruction. But if you can start saying like, thank you for this, like in the case of a lot of people like, with work, like, thank you for this. Like, I fucking hated my job. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't want to be going every day. And so, yeah, wow, thank you. Like, now I have an opportunity to see things differently. And that perspective shift to what could come out of this that could benefit me is just a different perspective than most people have. And people are being forced into it now. So.
Yeah, there was shit, man. I think I threw a note. Oh yeah, I did a little voice recording last night. I was driving down the road, and the idea of something about voluntary versus involuntary detoxification.
Mm-hmm.
And so so detoxification is just when the body has been overloaded with something that doesn't belong there or doesn't bring health, and now it needs to do something extreme, to do something out of the ordinary in order to flush it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times when people get the flu or they get the cold or whatever, it's actually what we look at as the flu, the symptoms of the flu are actually a detoxification process.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Healing process.
You're getting mucus in your throat. Like, what we can talk about COVID-19 is like, you're getting mucus in the throat. Your body is trying to get rid of shit.
Yeah.
And if it can't get rid of shit fast enough, then it can kill you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a detoxification process. And so to me, there's, all right, how capable is my body of detoxifying
Mm-hmm.
just regularly, like normal health? And then how much exposure to things that I need to detox from are building up in the system. And then, and so those are the two big things. And the same thing we can say with culture, with society, is what have we, what I think is we're not very robust in our ability to handle that. And then we're not, so we're not healthy. It's not a healthy society. And then things have built up, and now this is where we're at. So like the economy is also going to suffer in some ways. Things are gonna have to shut down for a period of time as the earth, the planet, mm-hmm. and I can talk about it, the human race detoxes. So we're having a big detox phase. But here's the deal: is for those of us who do a really good job at taking care of our health, we choose detoxification. Mm-hmm. So there's voluntary and there's involuntary. 99% of the population waits until there's too much and the body says, fuck you, I'm detoxing you. And now you're miserable in bed and you can't get out. And that's what's happening to the whole planet right now. Mm-hmm. And then there's voluntary detoxification. There's fasting. Mm-hmm. There is cutting out certain things. There is, you could sweat it out. You can do combo. There's like we do combo to detox our organs and our body. And I'd say between like fasting and combo, there's like two really easy things that we do that are detoxifying in nature. There's a lot of other stuff. And a detoxing process is uncomfortable. There's hardly ever anything comfortable about detox. The difference is when you choose detox, you get to choose when you do it. It's on your schedule. It doesn't interrupt something. It's not a surprise. And it's usually shorter and less uncomfortable than when you wait. And so what we're experiencing is society is going through an involuntary detoxification process. And those of us that have done a really good job of detoxing regularly are more able to withstand. So when I talk about detox, I'm also talking about mental detox, emotional
And emotional
detox.
too, yeah.
There's mental, emotional detox, physical detox, but I think people will really be able to understand what a physical detox is like. That makes sense, but mental and emotional as well. And that's a lot of the work that we do. And yeah, the world is going through it right now. So I don't know how long it's going to take, because sometimes when you get sick and it's an involuntary detox, it can take weeks for an individual or months. And we'll see how long it takes for the whole world, because I don't think we've had an involuntary detox in a while.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's easy to relate on the physical, but when you talk about culturally, like as a whole worldwide society, like there's not much data.
No,
It's not as much.
no.
Yeah.
Well, getting everyone to agree on doing a detox would be a little tough,
Yeah.
But there have been
Yeah, there have been.
people in the world who have been saying, they haven't been using the word detox, but they say, hey, we need to change how we do things.
Yeah.
This isn't good.
Man, I've been saying that. I speak to it all the time about how unsustainable, that's how I refer to it, is like, how unsustainable is our lifestyle individually and as a culture. And that's the thing about being unsustainable, is there is a time when it becomes unsustainable, not sustaining. And now it's not sustaining.
Right.
So we get to shift. I think it's a gift. I think it's a gift for a lot of people. And
when you talk about sustainability, there's adaptability. People who are choosing to adapt from moment to moment, and people who would rather ignore. They get those pings and like, fuck this, I'm not going to change. I like the way things are, even though like the warning signals are coming. It's like, don't bother me. Life is good. And now it's like, fuck you.
You know what? I'm actually in a lot of ways, this probably triggers a lot of people. I'm glad that the quarantine period is extending, because I think there were so many people that were just thinking like, oh, we'll hang out at home for a couple of days and then we'll go back to business as usual. And the business as usual was the problem. And so like I'm starting to see shifts in the conversations that I'm having, that like, oh, maybe this isn't just going back to life before, like maybe I do have to change something. And so it's always this period of like, how much discomfort is enough discomfort to make a change. Like that's how all change happens, is we get to be uncomfortable. And so so people, everyone has a different threshold for that. So
that's true.
Many people's threshold of discomfort is coming online every day. Like more and more people are like, okay.
I'm witnessing it. Yeah. Witnessing it is like, oh, everything's pretty good. Oh shit.
As things start to catch up with people, and they're it's like both, like internally, like you can only sit on the couch and watch Netflix and eat ice cream for so many days until you're like, oh shit, like maybe this is life now.
And that's not cool. It's not cool. No, you run out of Tiger King episodes and you're done. Have you watched any of that?
Oh, I did. Admittedly, I did watch it. I watched
the whole thing.
The whole thing.
Oh my god. Okay.
And it was.
I got through the first 2 episodes. I'll admit, I was stoned.
I was too. Some Jumbo. I had some Jumbo.
You had some Jumbo spray?
Yeah.
Dude, Jumbo spray is getting people through hard times right now.
I admit that was the only day where I did. It was actually over 2 days. I did Jumbo and Tiger King, but
I want to mention this because we are talking about cannabis right now. It's a lot of fun. It can be very insightful. It can be very healing, and it can also be a great substance to numb out and ignore things. So
it's a distraction.
my advice to people has been around cannabis is like, great. I'm using it during the quarantine, but not every day.
Yeah. I've used it twice.
Yeah.
2 days.
So take it easy, folks.
Mhm.
If you're having to use it every day, then, there's whatever it is that you're avoiding is just going to take longer to look at. And I'm not saying that you're using it to avoid it. You might be using it for something else, but it's way less likely for the things that need to come up for you to come up if you're using it. So there's that.
I will say, and I'm not justifying this, but the day I watched 5 episodes of Tiger King, I did a 16-mile hike up a mountain, and I got home and I laid on the couch at 5, and then I watched, I think, 4 hours of Tiger King.
There you go. Oh my God.
So yeah, that was my day. But
nice. Cool.
Not the norm.
People want to work with you, Chris. Where do they go?
They do want to work with me.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So trainingcampforthesoul.com. Yeah.
And there's Friday calls going on right now.
Yes. Yeah. So one thing we started doing was free Friday support calls where every week we're going through a tool that we use in real time. We're coaching people right on the video call. It's intimate, and you get to experience shifts and releases. Like, this isn't just giving you some teaching and then you go do it on your own. You're actually doing it in real time. We do breath work. We do feeling in the body and working through any issues that you currently have coming up. What's keeping you up at night? And we address and identify. I mean, we had this last call. We invited someone on one-on-one, and she worked through a massive experience with just losing her father a few months ago, and being able to finally grieve that. And so it's real. And yeah, if you're going to tune into this call, it's not like tuning into an Instagram live. Like, you really want to be focused and be there with intention. We only do it once a week for that reason. That look forward to it. So Friday, noon Pacific times.
Yeah, this is very valuable, folks. Very, very valuable. Some of the most valuable stuff you can get your hands on, and it is being offered for free. And it's being offered for free because we see a need for it right now. And I don't know how much longer it's going to go. This isn't going to keep going on forever.
No.
There's limited time. I would definitely go check it out.
Yeah. And we're like, right now we see that this is a time of uncertainty. People are seeking help and support. And that's why we're offering the support calls. And then also we have our virtual program that we're offering, like easy payment plans, like things that are super simple, because there's a lot of uncertainty around finances too. So we're making it as easy as possible to do this work. I did the virtual program, like version 1.0. We're on like version 3.0. It's incredible, like what people get out of this. So yeah, plenty of options to work.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I love you.
We'll be talking soon. Love you too, brother. All right, man.
All right. Thank you.